Hi, welcome to a quick instructional video on the topic of Columbus's motivation. So here's our learning targets for this content bubble. We're looking at the very first one in the content bubble for colonization. And our learning structure here, we're going to be working on the skill of justifying and constructing an explanation, where today's specific target is I can explain the motivations of Christopher Columbus in connecting the Old World and the New World, which relates to the essential question about what drove European nations to fund exploration, what did these nations hope to gain, and how did they do it? And of course, this all ties to our big unit question for invasion, which is what drives change? So the time period of Columbus's explorations kind of fits into this larger experience called the Renaissance, which means rebirth. So after the period of the Middle Ages, a lot of Europeans had this renewed sense of interest in ancient Greek and Roman cultures in particular. They developed a much higher and more positive view of humans and what they are capable of. And this also led to big advances in art, science, technology, engineering, etc. All of this kind of set the stage for new explorations around the globe. So let's look specifically at Christopher Columbus's experiences and what he was hoping to accomplish. So here is Christopher Columbus. He was born in what's now part of Italy, this city of Genoa. And he had grown up as an explorer, traveling up and down the African coast, trading with different groups along Western Africa in particular, and then bringing goods back to Europe. But his big ambition was to ultimately find a shorter route to the spice markets in Asia. Because there were a lot of very valuable goods that could be obtained in Asia. The problem was it was a very long, dangerous, expensive trip, and so Columbus had this brilliant idea that if he sailed west, kind of the opposite direction, he would get there much faster and safer. So the typical path to get to Asia from Europe was either over land, which was very long, very expensive, and possibly dangerous depending on what different groups of people you might encounter along the way, or to sail all the way south around Africa and across the Indian Ocean, which was also very difficult, very dangerous, very expensive. So Christopher Columbus's plan, in his mind, sounded really great, but he was rejected multiple times when he looked for people to invest and kind of support his ambition. His idea was based on this idea that the Earth's circumference was relatively small, and so he believed that sailing west, his voyage would be much shorter. But most people thought that the Earth's circumference was a lot larger than Columbus did. So they believed that, yes, ultimately, if he sailed west, he would reach Asia, but they feared that he would run out of supplies basically halfway across, and then they wouldn't get the access to Asia that they really wanted. So this age of exploration is kind of based on like these motivations based on gold, God, and glory, the 3 G's of exploration. Gold is this desire to find riches, trade routes in Asia, sometimes literally gold, looking for that bright, shiny yellow stuff called gold. Another major motivation is God and wanting to spread particularly the Christian religion to new people in new areas. So there's kind of a religious element to this, but also glory, this idea that an individual or a nation could gain more fame, more power, more prestige by being the first to claim, find, and conquer new places. So those 3 G's kind of encapsulate this big idea of exploration. And so what we're kind of exploring is what exactly was Columbus interested in? Which of these 3 G's fit his motivation the best? So at the time, in the late 1400s, when Christopher Columbus was alive, for most Europeans, this is their view of the world. You have Europe, Western Europe over here. This is Italy right here. Here is Africa. Here is what's referred to as the Middle East and India and then Asia, far eastern Asia that the Europeans called it, and this is kind of the destination they're seeking. Now, the problem for Columbus is he has no idea that in the way of his voyage west, trying to get to Asia, is all of this, North and South America. So these two continents, what ultimately will be called the New World, new because Europeans had not yet discovered them, were kind of this roadblock for Columbus in his voyage trying to reach Eastern Asia. So in his voyages, and he actually made 4 of them, where did Columbus actually go? Well, it's primarily places in the Caribbean. He did touch on the South American continent relatively briefly, but essentially places like the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, a bunch of islands in the Caribbean. These are the primary places that Christopher Columbus and his ships actually did reach. So in 1492, Columbus's first voyage sailed on these 3 ships, he and his crew, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. They made it to the Bahamas. That was the first place that they sighted land. And then they eventually made their way to Haiti and the Dominican Republic. That's what they're called today, thinking that he had reached Asia. Ultimately, his 4 voyages did not actually reach mainland North America, and he died believing that he had in fact made it to Asia, which obviously turned out not to be the case. But these are the first voyages, the first European contact with the Caribbean, with Central and South America. So your task in this assignment is to think about what exactly was motivating Christopher Columbus. Was he motivated primarily by gold, which would be money, God, which would be beliefs, or glory, which would be power? So you're going to read this primary source document. This is Christopher Columbus's letter to the King and Queen of Spain, who are funding his voyages. And as you're reading, you're going to find text evidence to support what actually shows Christopher Columbus's motivation. And then, in the end, you are going to justify and construct an explanation based on what you've read. So you're going to write a claim statement. You're going to include a quote lead-in to introduce the source of your text evidence, and then a quote explanation to show here's what Christopher Columbus's motivation was. Hopefully this helps review the content from this topic and an explanation of your task. If you need any help,